Welcome to the Fear and Greed Business Interview. I'm Sean Aylmer. Australian workers are reporting a steep decline in productivity and are less engaged as they're required to do more with less. The second annual Workplace Engagement Index from HR and employee engagement platform Reward Gateway suggests workers' priorities are shifting away from pay towards other employee benefits and a greater focus on welfare. I don't know how this sits with the very clear push by companies to get employees back into the office. To find out about that, Kylie Green is with us, the Managing Director, APAC at HR and Employee Engagement Platform Reward Gateway. Kylie, welcome to Fear and Greed.
Thank you for having me, Sean.
So you survey hundreds of HR professionals and employees across the country. Productivity is such a big issue for this country at the moment. What did you find out about that?
Yeah, it was really interesting. We surveyed over 1,500 HR leaders and employees, and it's the second year we've done that. And we've looked at people across 14 different industries. And the really interesting thing that came out was the tension that's experienced between organisations that are looking to drive productivity, drive performance in what is a really challenging market, and actually the requirement for employees around what they're looking for in terms of support and entitlements there. And we're seeing a real tension between the two. We saw particularly what we've dubbed the year of self. For 2025, we saw more requests from employees for things which you can really categorise under the work to live focus. Employees are asking for more flexibility, fair pay and compensation. They're also asking for more support, more recognition and reward. On the other hand, we're seeing employers that are actually challenged with doing more with less. So there's a real tension building between the two.
So, this is the second year of the survey, but the last 12 months, there was more of that. The year of me is a fantastic way of thinking about it. There's more of that, you think, than previous years?
Yeah, absolutely. We've seen a couple of things that have been a really interesting trend. We've seen productivity drop year on year. So employees that we're seeing, they were productive at like 68% last year, dropped to just 47% of employees this year. And we're seeing also a drop in across the board, across certain demographics. So the things that we're seeing that are happening consistently across the board on key metrics from employees, what we're finding is the workplace experience is different for different demographics of employees. So as an example, we're seeing rising burnout, stress, and we're seeing rising levels of concern at work from employees. But what we're seeing is that women on whole are 12 to 16 percentage points higher than men. We're also seeing those with less experience in the workforce, so particularly our Gen Zs, our millennial employees, actually experiencing higher levels of burnout and stress than what we're experiencing across Gen X and baby boomers. And so what we're seeing across the survey results is people having a requirement for greater levels of support at work, and particularly those with the least years of experience are particularly looking for more support, more flexibility, and also more opportunities for learning and development to help them navigate what is a more complex environment than what we've seen previously.
I wonder whether Gen Xers and baby boomers aren't necessarily well equipped to provide that to Gen Zers and others simply because they didn't have it themselves.
Right. And the workplace is evolving so much. Within 2 years, we're going to see Gen Alpha enter the workforce. So, we're going to then have, for the first time in history, 5 generations in the workforce. And so when you think about managers, the opportunity to equip them to be able to provide a personalised and a meaningful employee experience across 5 generations is something that we haven't done before. And when you consider that so many managers are first-time managers, we've really got this whole group of middle managers who are in a really challenging position. On the one hand, we're asking them to drive productivity performance, which we need so critically, within both our organisations and within the nation as a whole to maintain rising cost of living, to improve real wages and all of that. But on the other hand, many of these managers haven't had the level of training and support to be able to be well equipped, to be able to navigate a more complex environment, and to be able to support employees with very different needs across 5 different generations. So it's an interesting time, and what we're seeing is the most innovative organisations are tackling that head on, and they're the ones that are really leading the way. And it's only about 31% of organisations, employees, that have actually said their leaders are well equipped to recognise them and to support them and to support their contribution, which is obviously we're seeing directly linked to productivity results within those organisations.
I just want to take you very quickly back to women. You said were more likely to suffer burnout too. Is there a reason for that? I mean, it's a dreadful statistic if that's the case.
Yeah, that it's a really significant difference between the experience of work. And one of the things that came through in the research and in the themes is that we're seeing that for many workplaces, the benefits were established at a different time. And we're seeing many women that are obviously taking on increasingly big roles within their organisation, but at the same time have many high degrees of non-paid work, caring duties for families and the like. And so what we're seeing is as workplaces are asking their employees to do more with less, as people are taking on, we're seeing a lot of shrinking of sizes of organisation with increasing scope of roles within employees. We're seeing the challenge and the rising tension of employees trying to juggle that. And the impact of that we're seeing is on burnout and stress, which ultimately is impacting productivity, performance. And because of that, we're seeing some 60% of employees considering leaving. Now, they're not quite leaving yet. If you look at the turnover rates within Australia, people are considering it, but they're not quite walking out the door. And when you consider the financial climate, we think that's got a lot to do with employees staying put in the current market. But as the economy strengthens, there is a real risk to employers that their top talent won't remain with their organisation, and it provides quite a competitive risk to the productivity and the performance results that organisations, particularly those that are looking to grow, are trying to achieve.
Kylie, we'll be back in a moment. I'm speaking to Kylie Green from Reward Gateway. Something else which I think is really interesting that's come out of your work is the fact that money isn't, or I don't know whether money's king or not. If it is king, it's not quite as powerful as it used to be, Kylie.
Yeah, so money isn't everything. Money's obviously important. And one of the things we see is that people rank competitive compensation as an important, but it actually ranks third in the thing that drives employees' engagement and productivity. So while we're looking at cost of living and fair pay and benefits is expected as an entitlement for everyone, it was really interesting to see that two things outranked that. The first thing was reward and recognition. That rose 10 percentage points from last year's survey. And what we're seeing is particularly employees that are working in frontline workforces are crying out for more recognition for their contribution. We're also seeing that younger demographics are looking for greater moments of recognition and greater visibility from their organisations as well. The second thing that we're seeing outside of pay is supportive managers and leaders. And so we're seeing the role of managers and leaders evolve within organisations, and people are not only choosing the company, but particularly choosing the leader and the level of support for leaders. Now, that's a really challenging statistic, that being number 2 for what employees rank. Interestingly, when we surveyed people and culture leaders, so HR leaders, that actually jumped from third place last year up to first place this year.
Wow.
And the reason behind that is we're seeing time and time again that HR leaders recognise that their mid-level managers are the key to delivering the growth of their business. They realise that they need a great leadership bench, and for those employees to be able to have that recognition that employees crave, that requires great leaders that can shine the spotlight on the performance and behaviours that they'd like to see repeated in the organisation.
So if we think about Year of the Self, recognition being all important, more so than money, the need for good middle management, in a sense, it doesn't surprise me, but it seems that they're not things that in previous decades have actually been followed necessarily by workplaces in Australia.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing is the world of work is evolving quite significantly, and that's really been accelerated since the pandemic. And particularly when you think about managers, the world of work has evolved around what we're asking of managers. Managers obviously previously were managing communication, they were managing process and outputs. Nowadays, we're asking a lot of our managers. We're asking them to have a level of competency that we've never had before as the world of work evolves. So they are focused on agile leadership, they're focused on emotional intelligence, they're focused on supporting employees to drive through what is a really fast pace of change and encouraging their employees to do more with less. So the world of work has evolved. Now what we're asking our leaders to do is to be able to take those employees on that journey, to be able to drive increased performance performance and to be able to deliver that within their organisation. And I think where middle managers, particularly in this evolving world of work, have actually got a really challenging time is the rising dual tensions of organisations in a softer economy that need to obviously drive efficiency, drive productivity, drive performance, become more effective and do more with less. On the other hand, employees who have realigned their cultural expectations of what they're willing to contribute, of what the world of work looks like, moving more to that year of self where there is more of a mindset of working to live. And so there's a real tension between those two. And I think what we're seeing is the most innovative organisations are actually tackling that head on, and they're seeing it as an opportunity of not being a zero-sum game, but being able to actually create an environment where they recognise the base needs. If you think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, those base needs need to be met around how do you support employees for their individual needs and actually taking that off the table. And once they do that and that stops being a disruption to employees' thoughts and focus, they're allowed to actually support their employees and they're empowered to support their employees to look up and to look out and to consider how they can actually contribute in a more meaningful way and bringing their attention to a bigger purpose amongst the organisation. Because of that, the organisations we're seeing do that well, they're actually driving more incremental contribution for their people, and actually that's flowing through to more bottom line results.
Plenty in that, Kylie. Thank you for talking to Fear and Greed.
Lovely to be here. Thanks for your time.
That's Kylie Green, Managing Director APAC at HR and Employee Engagement Platform Reward Gateway. This is the Fear and Greed Business Interview. Join us every morning for the full episode of Fear and Greed, daily business news for people who make their own decisions. I'm Sean Aylmer. Enjoy your day.